people have died from the jab by the estimates that you know? The low end to the high end.
The numbers vary, but 500,000.
So you're saying, what's the high end? What's the high end? The guy in Austria said it close to 17 million.
Right. Well, that's worldwide.
So
right?
let's just say it's probably neither of those numbers, somewhere in between,
it's
and we don't know. How many people died in World War II from the United States? 457,000.
Yeah.
So we already have more people on the low end dead, and you want to talk about Fruit Loops?
No.
I want to hear you adapt to the data, and you're not. This is a bioweapons program that spans 75 years. That alone should end everything that's going on with. Why? SV40 is not on any of the FDA's paper. 60 billion copies of DNA plasmids and SV40 promoter in it. You think it's ethical for a doctor, knowing that there's 60 billion copies, to put that into another human being?
I think that
it's an ethical question, not a policy question.
If what you are saying is true, then no, I do not think it's ethical. If what you were saying is true.
See, it wasn't that hard, Callie. Did the American public ask for transparency when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, or when the Mossad ran 2 planes into the 9/11? I just told you what the elephant in the room is.
Jack.
We have killed more people in the last 4 years than we did in any world war we've been involved with. And you want to talk about Fruit Loops.
If you're ready for a community...
Shut up, bitch. Sorry, guys. Uncle Jack got me riled up. Remember... know thy enemy. And these guys, remember this one. These guys don't give a flying fuck about you. Well, if you could start to affect their control, their power, there it is. Maybe they start to cock block you a little bit. And if you really start to mess with these guys, you better be prepared. You better be really well prepared. Anyway, that was just a teaser. Uncle Jack, hit some more.
You are being ruled by people far worse than King George in 1774. These are the most evil people in the world. They make Hitler look like a street gangster. And I'm not kidding you that when I say that. These people have taken Hitler's worst ideas and now they put them at global scale. And they're using them not only against our enemies, they're using them against us. And what today represents is the last time they used it on our soil. I think I probably could argue maybe COVID was, the next iteration of Operation Northwood. We may be on, 5.0 or 6.0 by now. But I need people to understand that this truly is the greatest story never told. When you sit down and examine this, you connect all these dots. These dots are not meant to be connected. Who came up with that idea? General Groves. Keep the smart people in their own silos. Make sure they don't talk to each other.
Okay, let's connect some more dots. And I agree, these guys make Hitler look like a street gangster. They have made him look like he's the biggest evil of all time. Look into that one. Why is that? Are they hiding something? But let's connect some more dots. Give us some more base knowledge. Base history lessons, Uncle Jack. Teach us.
The only one in Congress that actually stood up for we the people. Everybody else pushed it through, but guess where the idea for 9/11 came from? 1962 at Operation Northlands. That was the precondition event to do something big on soil so that you could get the most unconstitutional law through Congress. So that's when the industrial military complex, or the deep state, how I like to call them, that's when they fully captured Congress. So now you've heard Bobby and Nicole talk about captured regulatory agencies. Those are the things that you and I are concerned about in science. But you need to understand how the shadow government, the MS-13 of the United States, is the industrial military complex. It is terrorism at scale. Okay? And when I tell you that we don't need to invade a country anymore, because really what MK Ultra has now morphed into, now we have other government contractors. Just so you know how DARPA operates. They have 120 different programs. All the program directors are in silos. Doesn't that sound very similar to what Alexis experienced at Princeton? That why doesn't, even Huberman got this in the podcast. He goes, it's very crazy the way we do science because it's siloed. They keep us separate. So I've heard you wax poetically the last 3 or 4 months when you're doing all these podcasts with people. And you're like, I can't believe that I never came across Jack Cruz's work and this and that. I'm going to tell you, Alexis, it's by design because it goes back to the general groves culminating with science, this cross-pollination. They want to keep people separate. So why am I taking you down this little history? Because you're a young woman, you're very smart, you get a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about light, but I want you to really understand the 80,000 foot view here, what's going on. So now the Brain Initiative is the new version of MK Ultra. Now it's got all the light and digital weapons associated with it. Patriot Act comes in, and what's one of the big problems that Rumsfeld, Cheney, and Bush didn't realize about this law, because this was made by a very right-wing, neocon, warmongering group of people. And they even circulated this law for 6 or 7 months before 9/11 happened, and everybody told them there's no way you're going to get this through Congress. So what did they do? They used Operation Northwoods. They came up with an idea, and unlike Kennedy, Bush signed up for it. So I want you to remember something. Bush's grandfather, Preston Brown Bush, who used to work for Brown Brother Harriman, he was one of the first people that controlled what? The OSS, which was the intelligence agency before the CIA that was based in the U.S. Navy. Guess who was the first head of the CIA after the OSS became the CIA? His dad, George, who was the president. And most people forget this lineage. So, believe it or not, this whole idea of siloing scientists, old Bush, George W., they already understood why it was happening. So when Bush takes control, 9/11 happens, they get the Patriot Act through, the one mistake that they made, and it's a big mistake, the penalty for bioweapon treason, meaning utilizing it in the United States, on any ground in the United States, it's a penalty by death due to treason. So they realize immediately that things have to be done differently. Like, you cannot have any of the bioweapons labs in the United States.
Yeah.
So what's the first thing that happens? I'm going to keep you on the timeline. 2013 is the Brain Initiative. So Barry starts to do things with this. Guess where most of the money is allocated? Latin America and South America, to these centers of academic excellence that are out there. And what simultaneously happens in 2014? You start to hear how the United States government, the industrial military complex, the neocons, you know, the Liz Cheneys, who are the daughter of Dick Cheney, that begins to push NATO right up to Russia's borders. Why? Because they want to use Ukraine to put other bioweapons lab in, and they're basically going to fund these labs there to do our dirty work. In other words, what was used to be at Fort Detrick was then moved to Ukraine and then moved to Wuhan.
Yeah.
Takes over all that. That's Fauci, Daszak, and the guys at EcoHealth Alliance. So they're doing the gain of function studies. What if I was to tell you that the gain of function studies were designed to find that furin cleavage to do two things? The first one is to make sure that we could easily get into humans, but what if I was to tell you that there's an industrial military aspect to this? That aspect is being worked out in the Brain Health Initiative, and guess who's part of this but doesn't realize that he is? Elon Musk. And why is Elon Musk part of this? Because when you understand how light works, my dear, if you're able to put nano microchips, or like I like to call them the nano mafia, into a bioweapon, You need a way to get light to people over large areas. So what do? You come up with an idea, let's give internet from satellites to everybody, but make sure that the guys in DARPA control the whole program so that when they need to use it down the road, they can. So Elon Musk has no earthly idea what is going on in the Brain Health Initiative. But the interesting thing is, you know that Elon Musk is now working with neuroscientists from Stanford, Harvard, Princeton, but also the guys at Barron Neurologic Institute. What has his stuff transformed it? Went from Starlink to Neuralink. So you got to go, are these things actually the parts, just like it was in the Manhattan Project, where the industrial military complex, meaning DARPA, is keeping these people apart? Because let's face it, scientists, as you know, are pretty smart people. So if you keep them in silos, they're never going to understand how these pieces and parts fit. So when, say, a random jabloke gets on the internet and starts talking about shit like this, everybody's going to say, well, this guy's crazy. He's a conspiracy theorist. There's no way this stuff matters, until you begin to realize that these stories actually all fit. So now I've taken you through 2013, 2014. I told you we're getting closer and closer and closer. So what starts to happen 2016 through 2020? You have a Yahoo come in who's an outsider, who's not part of the industrial military complex. Just so we're clear, the people that I've mentioned have been in control of the government. Clinton's, Obama, Bush's, and Biden's, 32 out of the last 36 years. 4 years, you had one guy that didn't wage any war, but also wasn't privy to what really was going on. But one of the interesting things he did is he strengthened the one part of the government that isn't captured by the industrial military complex. This is important. He actually strengthens them to actually be able to reverse even a corrupted DOJ by Merrick Garland. This is the real funny part of the story. When you begin to see they ramp up the biologic part, like how are they going to reduce the carbon? I don't believe that COVID was ready for prime time. And I think that was their plan, to actually screw Trump up and make sure he never got reelected again. So guess what? I would say this is Operation Northwoods 3.0. And it really failed miserably on them because it began to open people's eyes that something below the surface here just wasn't correct. And one of the things, as Trump walked out the door, that he began to message and talk about, because I think many people in your audience will say, I don't understand how all this fits, but there's this crazy attorney general and politician in Guatemala that keeps telling people, we've got all these people from South America and Latin America that are being taught by the American military to come up to our borders and get in. And when they get in, there seems to be a sorting process that's happening at the border, and no one knows what's really controlling it. And the interesting thing is, we think it's a child trafficking ring, but it's really not. See, that's the story the conspiracy theorists will have you believe. What if I was to tell you, Alexis Cowan, that what was happening is all the stuff from the Brain Health Initiative has been going on for 10 years in Latin America and South America. Many of these people are brought up to our border, they're screened to find out what they impacted. What if I was to tell you that the main technology that was used was screen technology to affect these kids? The first test they did, I happen to know, was done in Peru. It was done to control their sex life. They were easily able to do that. The process continued further. When those people came up to the border, those were the people that actually were let into the United States. That's also the reason why they want them in the States. But you just heard from Trump 2016 to 2020 that the Guatemalan people are going, there's a lot of kids missing. And, you know, the dominant narrative right now on the internet is that they think it's pedophiles and, you know, the Pizzagate and all that bullshit. But if I was to tell you it's actually a scientific reason that you actually will think about in a totally different way. We're missing between 200 and 400,000 children from their parents coming up there. You remember all that part of the story? And that, you know, the Democrats were telling Trump was locking them in cages, and then the Democrats made a big deal. Well, they had to get them out of the cages. Do you know why? Because they needed them to be research animals for the new version of MK Ultra. Let me ask you a question, Alexis. When you use light to do mind control experiments, is it easier to see the effect on a human when you have a more or less myelinated brain?
Less myelinated. They're more influenced by it.
So would you then, if you're a researcher and want to see the effect of the electromagnetic spectrum on some of the new chips, nanotechnology, what I call nano mafia, the transhumanist things that are going on at DARPA that we already know about, the things that are being done in the brain health initiative, the things that even Elon Musk is talking about now, you know, but obviously in a good way. Wouldn't you want to study that in the most efficient fashion if you were trying to get that? Might that be the real reason that these kids have gone missing? Because remember, you can't get people, as you know, as a researcher, you can't pay them enough money to do some of that research in the United States, could you? You would have a really big problem to power your study, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
But if you were able to do it without informed consent in a Latin American country or a South American country, and the people that paid for the Brain Health Initiative, do you know where they come from? Washington University and the U.S. Navy. And you know where Washington University is?
St. Louis?
And where did the MK Ultra LSD drop come from?
Also St. Louis?
Guess what? That program is still operational, but everybody in the government wants to tell you it's not. So what do? They put lipstick on the pig, and now they're selling it through biological science. But it's clear it has an industrial military capability.
The pieces are starting to fit together a little bit too well. A little bit too well, bro. Uncle Jack with them hitters, them truth bombs. Truth napalm on our brains. Thank you. Thanks for the lessons. What a great uncle we have. So we can know what the hell is going on and start to make some sense of this reality. So we can maybe do something about it. First thing we need to do is oyster up. Second thing, get out in the sun. See ya.